When we dive into this project, it's clear that the foundations of something much bigger are being laid. The idea of pitting two AI teams against each other is honestly a very exciting experiment. But, like with many projects, things can look chaotic at first. It can take time for everything to fall into place, and this project was no different. However, what makes it so interesting is how both teams were able to adapt and develop strategies to counter each other. This process created a true learning experience, and ultimately it led to some really creative and fascinating behaviors. In the early stages, everything was pretty chaotic. The hiders and seekers were moving around randomly. Neither side had a clear strategy, so for the first few million rounds, there wasn't much to see. Both teams were moving aimlessly, and this led to Seekers winning most of the games because they didn't have to deal with any substantial strategy from the Hiders. The Hiders hadn't figured out the right moves yet, and naturally, Seekers took advantage of this. But then things started to change, and that's where things got really exciting. Over time, the Hiders began to learn. This learning process was really impressive because the Hiders realized they couldn't succeed on their own and started working together. This is what made the project so much more interesting. The map was intentionally designed in a way that the hiders could only succeed if they worked together. They couldn't win on their own, so they had to learn to collaborate, and they did really well. Slowly, the hiders began to block doors by placing boxes, preventing the seekers from getting through. Initially, this strategy seemed simple, but it started to show real effectiveness as the rounds progressed. The hiders started winning consistently. This was a truly fascinating development because at this point, the competition between the AI teams wasn't just about one side defeating the other. It was more about how each side taught the other new strategies, creating an evolutionary cycle. These kinds of situations make AI learning processes much more intriguing because every new strategy is built on top of the previous one, leading to more complex and effective solutions. And that's when the seekers started adapting, developing new strategies of their own. The seekers discovered how to use ramps. At first, no AI thought to use a ramp, but after some time they realized they could push it against a wall to create a new kind of advantage. This was a really surprising development because at this point, the AIs were starting to analyze their environment more deeply. By using ramps as a tool to create new pathways, the seekers gained an advantage, which allowed them to win more often. This demonstrated how the AI systems were starting to use the physical objects around them in creative ways, pushing the boundaries of what they could do. Using the ramp became a game-changing move for the Seekers, and this created a new challenge for the Hiders. But the Hiders didn't give up. They adapted too. They began to hide the ramps to prevent Seekers from using them. This was such a clever move because the Hiders recognized that the ramp had become a powerful tool for the Seekers, so they decided to take it away. The best part was that there was a short period at the start of the game when the Seekers were frozen, and during this time the Hiders could sneak out, steal the ramp, and hide it from the Seekers. This was a genius move because it took full advantage of the game's mechanics and timing. It was a brilliant way to prevent the Seekers from using the ramps, which had been giving them an advantage. But things didn't end there. The Hiders started separating the ramps from the boxes, making it even harder for the Seekers to use them. The separation of the ramps from the boxes was a great defensive strategy because it reduced the Seekers' ability to utilize the ramps effectively. This move was so well executed that after the Hiders set it up, there wasn't any time left for the Seekers to respond. They were left with no option but to watch as the Hiders continued to succeed. In addition, the Hiders started throwing the ramps away, exploiting the game's physics system. This was another unexpected development that left the Seekers confused. After the Hiders threw the ramps, the Seekers were left thinking, what just happened? It was a great example of how the AIs could adapt in creative ways, using their environment to create new strategies. Throwing the ramps wasn't just about preventing Seekers from using them. It was a statement of how much the Hiders had learned and how resourceful they had become. But the Seekers weren't done either. They started using the same physics issue to their advantage, launching themselves onto the top of the Hiders. This was another clever move that showed just how far these AI teams could go in breaking the rules of the game. It was a great